Welcome back. We're going to move on now to the topic of asbestos and spend quite a bit of time talking about asbestos because it is a hazard that is very, very damaging to people's health, and it is something that you can come across, especially if you're working on sites that are a refurbished development. So we are going to spend a little bit of time now just talking about that. So in terms of asbestos as a definition is the general term used for fibrosous silicates listed in regulation. The control of asbestos regulation is what will detail fully what to do in terms of asbestos, but just to give you some information, in the majority of cases, work with asbestos needs to be carried out by a licensed contractor, so you need to be trained fully and competent before you work with asbestos. If existing asbestos materials are in good condition, you can actually just leave it, monitor the condition, and regularly make sure that it's not being broken down. It's not dangerous unless it's getting the fibres are split up and going into the air. So as long as it's not disturbed, it's okay. Exposure to asbestos fibres can result in mesothelioma, asbestosis, and lung cancer. So there are different types of cancers which range in different areas that they will affect you, but they can be fatal. And they won't progress immediately. It'll be sort of 30-40 years down the line after working with asbestos that you can start to get the health issues that come along with asbestos. But those are some of the main health conditions that can arise as a result of having asbestos. So when working with asbestos, you should be wearing laceless footwear, disposable overalls, and suitable respiratory protective equipment. So that's the equipment that you need to be wearing in order to ensure your safety when you're working with it. Asbestos can be found in any building built or refurbished before 2000. That is very important, and it does come up quite a lot in the exam. The reason it is built or refurbished before 2000 is because asbestos was banned in 1999 in the United Kingdom. So the use of it is being banned, so it won't be in buildings following that period. However, it was widely used prior to then in many different things, particularly when in building, because it was such an easy material for them to use. They didn't realise at the time how damaging it would be for your health. However, after they did, it was banned in 1999. Asbestos can only be correctly identified by getting a sample analysed in the lab. You can't look at something and say, yep, that's asbestos, leave it alone. It has to be analysed properly. And again, only handled by a licensed contractor. You need to have had training, as I say, for non-licensable asbestos work and be authorised to work with or remove asbestos. Work with asbestos needs to be carried out by trained and competent workers using appropriate control measures and prevent exposure and spread of asbestos. So a few examples of something that you might find with it. Ceiling tiles. Ceiling tiles used to contain asbestos quite often because they were really good at keeping in heat. So you can often find them there as well as in insulation and in pipe lagging. So there's some examples of where you might typically find asbestos materials. We are going to carry on now and talk about noise control. So an early sign of damage to your hearing is a temporary deafness or a ringing noise in your ears. Once hearing damage occurs, it is usually permanent, and loud noises can cause headaches and hearing loss as some symptoms that you might find if you have been exposed to loud noises. You should wear ear defenders when working with any kind of loud noises, and hearing protection will only reduce the noise to an acceptable level. It won't block everything out, it won't repair your ears, it will only block out some of the noise and dampen it down. Noise levels are considered problematic if somebody needs to shout to be heard standing 2 metres away from the person they are talking to. Something's not happening there, you need to stop what you're doing and make sure everything's okay. Disposable earplugs is something that I've also seen come up in the exam, so it's important to know how to insert them properly. The main way for this is to roll them up and insert them in your ear whilst you're pulling on the top of your ear in order to open up your ear canal. So you're rolling them, pulling your ear up and putting them in. So accidents and near misses is something that comes across in the workplace quite often, particularly in a construction site. So it is important to have a fair grasp on these ones. All accidents are to be reported in the accident book immediately and by yourself where possible. The injured person or a witness must record the accident in the accident book. If it's not possible for you to do it and you're the one that's injured, then that's fine, get somebody else to do it as soon as possible, but preferably it should be you. The date and the time of the accident Details of the injury sustained and the injured party's home address must be noted in the accident book. You don't need things like the national insurance number that often catches people out. You do need their home address and what happened for the incident itself. The accident record must be sent to the employer's insurance company at the end of the job. It's also very important, I'll just reiterate from earlier on, that your employer must take on board any incidents of serious accidents or near misses and report it as well. Near misses should also be reported to try and ensure they do not happen again. You're not trying to find blame, you're just trying to make sure that it won't happen again and actually injure somebody later on. When you're injured and subsequently absent from work for more than 7 days, the accident needs to be reported to the Health and Safety Executive, so it needs to be recorded and raised higher up as well to highlight it. In terms of first aid, the first aid can only be administered by a trained first aider. If you are not a trained first aider, do not go and administer first aid. A first aid box must be provided and stocked by the employer on every site. You should always seek medical assistance as soon as possible. So if you've gone into a scenario and somebody is lying on the floor, clutching their stomach, maybe in a lot of pain, the first thing you should be doing is calling for help to get emergency services in if that's what the situation calls for. Don't be lying them down on their stomach if they're in pain for their stomach. Just get emergency services there as soon as possible. In some instances, you may have to ensure the injured person is in no immediate danger before getting medical assistance. So say for instance they're in a confined space and they've passed out due to lack of oxygen. If you leave them in there, they might die because of the lack of oxygen going to their brain. So you need to make sure they're in no immediate danger. Same for if there is a brick that falls, knocks somebody on the head, knocks them out. You need to make sure that more bricks aren't going to fall down and hit them as well. So you need to make sure they are safe, and you as well need to make sure you are safe. Always follow the site emergency procedures as noted in the site induction. And the first aider is not authorised to administer any kind of medication. There's a big difference between you turning to your friend and saying, my head's really sore, can you give me a paracetamol? Your friend can do that if they want to. A trained first aider can't. They're not allowed to give any kind of medication. Mental health is also something that's really, really important now. So it's always been important, but it's something that comes up more and more often now. It is an issue. If there is an issue, it should be managed and talked to your employer and supervisor. You are not alone, so please talk to somebody, whether it is your employer, supervisor, a colleague. Reach out if you are suffering from mental health. In terms of the best time to address stress at work, as soon as possible. Don't wait. If something's stressing you, talk to somebody as soon as possible. Stress can impact anyone at work and have a direct impact on your mental well-being, so it can be very, very damaging, and it's not only going to affect one worker, it might affect a team of people, but it will affect anybody at any time. That is the important part. It can be caused by a vast array of things. Anything at all can cause stress for somebody. Most people have experienced stress at some point in their lives already. And symptoms of mental health issues and stress can include a loss of appetite, fatigue, and tearfulness. So here's another example of an exam question that you might find. What is a good way of reducing fatigue in the workforce? Rotating shift patterns, random start and finish times, regular start and finish times, and early start and late finish times. So I'm going to leave you here for this one, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to decide, and then I'll come back to you for the next section, give you this answer, and we're going to move on to talk about fire safety as well. Thank you.